Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jackie, and we're just two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s. This week, we are talking about the 2003 Marvel movie Daredevil with our pod pals Mike and Mike. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Hello.
We're so glad having you guys on.
Watch another Marvel movie.
That's right. We've really built a brand for ourselves on this.
Yeah. The Marvel Mike and Mike. Yeah.
Yes. Ironically, Mike D has fallen off the Marvel train in recent years.
Very ironic, yes.
The marvelous Mikes have joined us again. If you guys don't know what we're referring to, we were lucky enough to have them on for Spider-Man. If you haven't listened to the episode, definitely check it out after this episode. And if you haven't taken a chance to go listen to our trailer episode with them, you guys should get to know them, get to know their podcast. And we do a very deep dive into Marvel and a timeline into Ben Affleck. We know you want it.
We were all thinking
there's something for everyone in this trailer.
The people were demanding it.
Well, before we dive in, let's get into some
housekeeping.
If you love the podcast and want to support us, here's a few ways you can.
You can write us a review and help us get more listeners. Head over to your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Podchasers, Good Pods, and leave us a review. It really does help.
And if you like what you hear and want to buy us a virtual cup of coffee, head over to ko-fi.com/no-more-late-fees.
And we have merch. I want to repeat what Mike said, even shower curtains.
That's
if
right.
you go to our Redbubble store, there's a lot of rain in this movie. So I feel like it's fitting that you go get that No More Late Fees shower curtain. Just head over to nomorelatefees.redbubble.com.
So Daredevil, where to begin?
What a picture.
The movies.
The film stars Ben Affleck as Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer who fights for justice in the courtroom and on the streets of New York as the masked vigilante. He's a
lady in the street and a freak in the street.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
A lady in the sheets and a freak in the streets.
There it is.
So it stars Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner, Michael Clarke Duncan, Colin Farrell, Joe Pantoliano, Jon Favreau, and David Keith. Jon Favreau, all of my notes say happy. I did not call him by his character name. He is just happy to me because he's in a Marvel movie.
That's totally fair. There's a deleted scene from Spider-Man No Way Home with Jon Favreau and Charlie Cox playing Daredevil. And I guess there are actually the actual movie has a scene with them in it too. But it is just a weird thing. It was like, oh, he's acted against two different Daredevils. It's a weird thing.
It is.
I love it. The movie was directed by Mark Steven Johnson and also written by Mark Steven Johnson. You can currently watch it on HBO Max. And before we start, let's get into our ratings rewind.
So, you know the drill. Before we get into the movie, we will reveal the rating our Y2K versions of ourselves would give. Then at the end, we'll see if our current selves agree with our initial rating. Our scale consists of would buy it again.
The best would play on repeat.
5-day rental.
Would watch again.
2-day rental.
Okay, but nothing to write home about.
And same-day rental.
Trash. Straight up trash.
Hell's Kitchen garbage dump. All right. My guess, we'll start with you. What was your Y2K rating?
So if when I went to go see Daredevil in theaters back in 2003, what would I have given this?
Yeah.
I would probably say 5-day rental.
Okay.
If I had a 5-day rental leading into buy it kind of thing. I mean,
I was gonna say, come on, Mike.
Yeah.
Come on.
It was, this was at a time I was 10 when Daredevil came out.
You're telling me 10-year-old Mike didn't have this on DVD?
Yeah. I've never owned this on DVD.
I meant to
refuse
tell you guys, don't start with this age shit. Because every time you come on here, talk about motherfucking 10 years old.
I know, but it's an integral part of how I saw this movie. Because when I saw Daredevil, I had one friend who was obsessed with Daredevil, and like I think we went for his birthday. Like it was like it came around his birthday. He was obsessed with the character. He loved the comics. His older brother was into Daredevil. For Halloween, his mom like tailored like a lifelike Daredevil costume for him, and it looked really good. And so we went to go see Daredevil. He was really hyped for it, and I think because of his hype for it, I was really into it. And because I was 10, I also liked it because I have also mentioned this many times where like there's a certain age where you're watching movies and you start to realize like, oh, this movie was bad. Like you're starting to like. But at a certain age, you don't get that because like you're young enough and everything seems awesome. But my movie was actually a different Marvel movie that made me realize, oh, movies can be bad, which was Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Truly dreadful, like a really bad movie. But Daredevil was a couple years before that, and I liked Daredevil at the time. I thought it was really fun. So, but I would probably say like 5-day rental leaning into the would buy, but I never actually owned this, so I have to say 5-day rental.
Mike D.
I for sure had this on DVD, so own it, buy it. Top scores.
Jackie.
So in direct contrast to my guess, I was in college and my boyfriend at the time took me on a very romantic Valentine's Day date to see Daredevil.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I remember nothing about it. This movie was brand new to me, so that's how much it left an impression. So I'm going to go 2-day rental.
Okay.
Okay.
Now
Danielle?
we're going to be swimming in the Danielle's memory not great. I remember scenes. I remember scenes. I do. I don't believe I bought this movie. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I do know that I did obsess about Elektra. So for that fact only.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're Jennifer Garner stan right here.
Sure. Yeah. Fair enough. So you were obsessed with the movie Elektra, or just her performance in this movie?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I was down the clown for my Jennifer Garner.
Sure.
So I wish we had an in between 5-day and 2-day. I'm gonna keep it real. 2-day rental because I didn't remember it. And I knew it was trash when I saw that fake red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, tell us about the box office.
As much as we hate on this movie and we talk shit about it, it was bank, man. It made a lot of money considering.
Sure. Yeah.
It made its money back and then some. The budget was $78 million and it made $179.2 million in return. And just to keep everybody abreast, this movie, there was always the intention of making a second movie. I just think that Ben Affleck really didn't want to do another one. Like, he pretty much said, like, I'm not doing another one unless you agree to make it like some of his favorite comic book stories and make it dark. He was upset that it wasn't dark. Daredevil, I don't want to say he's the Batman of the MCU, but it's more aligned in that scenario.
This movie really makes him feel like the Batman of
yeah, with the gadgets.
Well, in he even has one of those shots where he's like looming over someone and it's just his shadow with his little devil horns.
Yeah.
It's very Batman.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this movie came out, I think, at a really interesting comic book movie period because you have post X-Men, post Spider-Man. And so those movies are huge hits. And every studio that owns rights to these characters, because Marvel had sold off the rights to all these characters, they didn't own most of them. So every studio that owned the rights to these characters were like, we got to make as many of these movies as possible so we can make bank. And so you have movies like Daredevil, you have Ang Lee's Hulk came out this year as well, and the two Fantastic Fours, and so many of them are like so radically different than the kind of stuff that we're seeing now, and in some ways I think more interesting, and in other ways
Ghost Rider, Mike.
Ghost Rider, from the director of this movie, by the way.
Really?
Mark Steven Johnson also directed Ghost Rider. So we have talked about a previous Mark Steven Johnson joint on a podcast before. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many like weird, crazy, like oddball comic book movies that came out in this time. And I think because Marvel got the rights back to all their characters and like kind of created this unified cinematic universe, most of those movies are on average better than what we would get during this period. But I think they're a little less interesting because most of them are roughly the same.
Yeah.
And here it's like every superheroes movie that you're getting is like, this is a radically different thing than what I had just previously watched. Like you would never see a Marvel movie now that has like an Evanescence needle drop.
Two of them.
Two Evanescence needle
Evanescence
drops.
songs.
I also 100% agree. I think what we get with consistency and like cohesion in the MCU, we miss out on creativity. And I think having different directors, having different takes, being able to have rated R versions, not being in the Disney machine, actually did well for some of these movies. Yeah. Originally, this movie was supposed to be a smaller budget. It was supposed to be grittier, dark. Affleck is Daredevil is his favorite comic book character as when he was growing up. And so he said he took the role because everybody has that one thing from childhood that they remember and that sticks with them. This story was that for me. He said, I didn't want someone else to do it because I was afraid that they would go out and do it different from the comic book and screw it up.
Right. And he was likely growing up in the 80s, right? I'm assuming. And so he was probably very attached to the Frank Miller run of Daredevil comics, which is the most famous run of Daredevil comics, like that 80s run that Frank Miller did, which is like kind of the default, like anything that is Daredevil, like that is adapted from Daredevil. Like the Daredevil TV show is also heavily inspired by that. So I got to imagine he wanted something kind of close to what Frank Miller was doing in those comics for this movie.
Well, the consensus from the critics here's a few quotes. While Ben Affleck fits the role and the story is sporadically interesting. I like that phrase. That sounds about right. Sporadically interesting.
Every once in a while, something's happening.
Daredevil is ultimately a dull, brooding origin story that fails to bring anything new to the genre. The Houston Chronicle's Bruce Westbrook considered it the best Marvel movie to date. It's as well written and character driven as some of today's Oscar contenders, and its story doesn't stall with hollow flamboyance. I don't know who slipped him a check.
I was just going to say, who paid Bruce?
Because, like, it's one thing for you to like it, but this is ridiculous, a little over the top. And it also should be noted that when we talk about the screenplay for this movie, that Kevin Feige, who was around during this time,
he was still producing most of these Marvel movies. Yeah,
he said that he felt the script was one of the strongest Marvel had received.
Okay,
that's not saying a whole
I mean, how many Marvel movies are there?
They had Spider-Man.
True.
You're telling me this was the best script?
No.
Yeah, the Spider-Man script is leagues better than this. Although I would be curious. I mean, and actually Mike D can maybe speak to this because I know we were talking about this yesterday. And Mike D actually watched the director's cut of this movie in preparation for this, which I watched the theatrical version. And I've actually not seen the director's cut, but I've heard it's way better. And it's also much longer. Like this movie
it's like over
is
2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, because Coolio is in it.
It's the Coolio cut. Come on. Yeah. Absolutely. It's great.
And so I gotta wonder, and Mike D, you could probably speak to it. Like, is the director's cut better?
I mean, I don't remember the theatrical cut a whole lot. I haven't watched it in a very long. But the director's cut, for being over 2 hours, is like kind of rocks. I don't know. It's like it feels more brutal than I remember, like more violent. I think it's like an
unrated cut.
I think it might be R-rated. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what the differences are other than the Coolio stuff. I didn't look at it a whole lot more than that. But yeah, the action and the fights feel a little bit more violent and have parts crunchier sound effects or something. I don't know. It feels more brutal.
That.
The music and stuff, the needle drops feel a little bit. There's the Evanescence stuff, but there's a lot more like just cursing and stuff. I don't know, just like the stuff that makes it feel like a grittier R-rated. Mm-hmm. So it was like, oh man, this is actually kind of cool. And it felt like there's some plot stuff associated with the Coolio subplot that allows them to figure out that there is a kingpin. So I'm like, how does this happen in the theatrical cut if Coolio's not in it? How do they explain these?
The kingpin just shows up.
He just shows up, and Matt's like, I figured it out. There's a kingpin. That was it.
Yeah, he like beats up a cop that has a pacemaker, and I don't know if, and he like, because so there's the whole thing with Coolio, he's being framed for murder, and of course Matt Murdock can hear everybody's heartbeat, so he can tell when they're lying, and this cop is testifying in court about Coolio's character, and his heartbeat doesn't change, so he's like, what? How could he be telling the truth if Coolio is also telling the truth? And a lot of yada yada yada. He like corners him in an alley, and he like roughs him up a little bit, and he's like, why isn't your heartbeat changing? And he rips open his shirt. And he realizes he has a scar and he has a pacemaker, so his heartbeat doesn't change when he's lying.
That is sexual assault.
But it's a cop, so YOLO. But then so he says, he's like, this is deeper than you and me, Murdock. It goes all the way to the top. And that's how he figures out there's a kingpin, basically. So yeah, it's pretty great. So like if that's not there in the theatrical, how do they figure? I guess yeah, like you said, the kingpin just kind of appears.
Yeah, I mean
it's very loosely like he hires Bullseye to take the fall for him, but then Bullseye's like, I'm working for this guy Kingpin, and Matt Murdock's like, okay, cool, thanks.
What?
Yeah.
It's weird. The first like hour of the movie, it feels like it skips the second act, kind of.
Yeah.
Like the first hour, it just feels like, okay, we're introducing this character, and now we're introducing this character, and now we're introducing this character, and then suddenly it's the climax of the movie, and there's no there's nothing in between.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we get like a origin story with Matt being just a little kid who's being bullied by the kid from The Sopranos.
AJ Soprano. I was so excited. This movie's
trying to-
peak 2003. It's got AJ Soprano. It's got Evanescence.
Yeah.
And then we learn through this bullying that his dad is working for crime lord or whatever.
Yeah, the guy from Breaking Bad, Hector Salamanca.
That's right.
The ringing bell guy. Yeah.
And Matt, he ain't liking that. He a good Catholic boy. Like,
Yeah.
Daddy, we ain't hitting the streets with no crime lords. Like, this isn't cool. And he's like, I'm not doing that, Matt. I'm just a struggling alcoholic
Ex-fighter.
Fighter
Guy.
dad. Yeah, boxer.
I'm a fighter dad.
But unfortunately, Daddy Murdock gets caught up in his lies because you should know your son liked the alley life and catches him roughing up somebody. And so, of course, Matt gets real mad, runs away. I would like to say he did the Phoebe runaway with his skateboard.
Yeah.
Very Phoebe-esque.
And randomly, there's just a bunch of like toxic waste just being willy-nilly pushed around. And because Matt is running around in these alleyways, forklift hits one of the canisters and blinds a bitch. Bad.
Yep.
But I have a question for someone who does not read comics and knows very little about Daredevil.
Why are they at
So,
eye height? We don't know.
Does he also gain superpowers other than his heightened senses because of the toxic waste?
No. So he gets like heightened senses, but then he also like Batman leaves and trains like for a really long time, and he's very good at like, and because of his senses, like he's pretty good at like acrobatic stuff. And
But how is he jumping from building to building? Is what I want.
Crouching tiger, hidden dragon, baby. Okay.
Michelle Yeoh podcast, you can go listen to it now. Yeah.
It just seemed like I could get on board with the whole like Batman stuff, but it seemed like he was doing an awful lot of like flippies from the air or like jumping from crazy heights and landing with like no physical damage.
Yeah. Usually he has his trustful Billy Club, which he uses to swing around places, and I think he has that in this movie. I don't remember exactly, but
It's a grappling hook thing.
Yeah, grappling hook kind of like it's his cane really that like turns into this staff that he can use to grapple around. But also, yeah, he can kind of just jump really high.
Well, he does talk about his extra ability of agility, but even in the TV show, I question like, does he have superpowers in his strength? Because when I tell you that Matt gets the business being beat up quite a bit on both the movie and the TV show, it doesn't even make sense physically that he is able to like move afterwards. So
he's
the
on
show
a lot
really
of narcotics.
Yeah, that's what it is. The show really like made it a point to like make it as brutal as possible, like be as dark and gritty as it could be. I mean, it was trying to distinguish itself from the other Marvel TV and movie stuff, and so it was TVMA and all that, and so it got very violent. And Matt gets the shit beat out of him a lot on that show. Most famously, the hallway fight in episode 2 or whatever is a very famous example of that. Also, just real quick, I just remembered a line that I used to make fun of a lot from the TV show, where like Rosario Dawson's like in his house and she's like kind of like treating him or whatever. She's the nurse, and he's like says something wise, and she's like, "Oh, you're blind, but you see so much."
Oh no!
And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's why I didn't like the show that much."
But the show has Complete Works friend of the pod, Scott Glenn, right? As Stick.
That's true. Yeah, Scott Glenn plays Stick in the show, who is not in the movie. I don't think he's not in this, right?
No, he's not in this.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But he's the guy that trains Matt in like the way of the ninja, basically.
Yes, exactly.
There's an explanation for his agility and all the stuff in the TV show. The movies, he's like, I took to the streets and I was able to slide and hop and jump.
Yeah, with the first like moment where like he becomes like Daredevil as an adult, and he like full on jumps off a skyscraper and then lands on the like window washer thing, like as if the problem with jumping off a skyscraper is hitting the street. Like, it's not hitting anything. Like, and he just bounces off it and he's fine. And I definitely noticed that, Jackie. It's like he'd be dead. Like he'd still be dead.
Just questionable stuff.
Yeah.
So he's obviously in the hospital after his accident. And when he wakes up, this is when we learn that all of his senses are just heightened and he's freaking out because he can feel, hear, smell every single thing that's happening. And it's just like oversensory.
There's a really funny moment in this. So like he's describing it and he's like, oh, my heightened hearing gave me like a radar for sound. Like, isn't that just sonar? Like there's already a word for that.
Yeah.
They had to think about the dum-dums of watching the movie. If they had said sonar, people would be like, what that? What does sonar mean?
Right.
So I think they legitimately were like, let's dumb it for the dum-dums.
Yes.
But you're right. There is a word for that. So Matt is able to actually end up, he hears the church bell, and I guess that magically makes everything stop for him. I don't know how he's able, like he has this meltdown in the corner and then he's able to like be fine.
Right.
After
he can also like hear people's conversations on the street. Like it's very, the heightened senses are very odd.
Yes.
Like what he can hear, what he can visualize with his sonar, what he can randomly smell.
Oh yeah, we'll dive deep into the sniffing because I got questions.
I'm assuming you're talking about when he shows up at the party and he just sniffs Jennifer Garner.
I'm not mad at it, but it's still like, what was happening right now?
I can't deny I would do the same.
I kind of thought the like visualization of the like sonar vision or whatever is like kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
It looks like bad CGI, I guess, but like I don't know. It's kind of an interesting way to visualize that.
I thought it was cool until there was just one scene where there was hands in front of him you could see, and they look like baby hands. And I'm like, what is happening right now? It looked very not great with the graphics, but it, like you said, it really wasn't bad up to that one point that I was like, wait a minute, what's happening?
Yeah.
It's almost like X-ray vision, kind of. Like you could see it like an X-ray.
Right.
It just reminds me of like when you used to go to like the science museum when you were younger, and they always had that like wall panel where you could like move around and it would like trace your movements. That's what it reminded me of. But Matt is also a friend of the church. When did this happen? Why did this happen?
He altar boy.
Yeah,
that's a big thing in his character, and I don't know the like origins of it because I don't.
That's from the I think that's from the Frank Miller run of comics, because I think I mentioned this on the Spider-Man episode, but I have a subscription to Marvel Unlimited, and I've been doing like a years-long project at this point to like just start reading Marvel comics from the beginning, which takes a really long time. And so I'm currently in like 1976 or something. Like I've read like the first 15 years of Marvel comics over the course of like the last 5 years. So at this rate, I'll never finish. So the Frank Miller run starts in the 80s, but I can say in the 70s, like up to this point, like reading Daredevil comics, I've read like 150 of them or something like that. And the Catholic stuff has not come up at all yet. Like that has not been a thing at all. So I think that's really a part of like the Frank Miller run of comics, which I think this movie is partially drawing from. And I think that's what Ben Affleck, like I said, wanted to draw from with this character. And then I think this movie is, and I think that's where Elektra comes from as well. Like that's the Frank Miller run, like when her character is first introduced. So I think this movie is trying to like condense everything from that run of comics and other stuff. Just kind of put it all in this movie.
Like,
and
I
then
just
none of it
needed
really makes an impact.
the like priest or whoever he was to like run into the hospital room and like console Matt. And so like that's why he's known him forever, because he's known him since his accident. There's just something where we know why this guy is like taking care of him all the time and why Matt goes to the church all the time.
I think that is something that is handled better in the show too. I feel like the show kind of really dives into Matt's like Catholic guilt a lot of the time and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, to me, if he lives in Hell's Kitchen and it's just like a neighborhood kind of thing, so many people are in the church, it's a part of the community kind of thing. And with his dad dying so young, I could imagine that maybe what ended up happening is that he becomes like a surrogate kind of caregiver for Matt because he's been involved in his life for so long. Because they don't really talk about his mom either. So I can assume maybe she was the one who made that introduction of church in his life. So I think it's just to have another adult character figure since he doesn't have any family apparently, and since his dad is dead. So, but it is like, what?
Who's this guy?
Well, when we get to the scene of him, like when we get to a certain scene, it does get weird with the priest. So finally, his dad comes into his hospital room and they're able to like hug and embrace, and they both promise each other that they're going to work hard, and he's going to work hard in school, and the dad's going to work hard to like be straight and narrow. So the dad's training, going back to boxing, and Matt is learning Braille and all sorts of stuff.
And Matt saves Stanley from walking into traffic.
That's right.
Yes.
Stanley actually does not like this movie.
Oh.
He said that it was too tragic.
That's interesting because Stanley likes everything. Like like he's like the Marvel pitch man who's like, yes, and Daredevil, we love Daredevil. It's one of the best movies we ever made, and all that kind of stuff. So for him to like come out and say like, oh yeah, Daredevil was bad, that's a lot.
But yes, we save Stanley, and then we fast forward. Oh no, Dad has a fight. But before his fight, his old crime lord bosses come rolling into, I don't know, backstage. I don't know what they call it. Green room. There you go.
Behind the ring.
Yeah.
The playground. So he comes and he's like,
there is a playground scene later in this movie.
Yeah, there is. He's like, where you been? What's going on? He's like, you still work for me? He's like, I don't. He's like, yeah, that's not how this works. And pretty much tells him he wants him to throw the fight because money is on the line. But Daddy, I was going to call it Warbucks, Daddy Murdock does not throw the fight. He wins. And afterwards, he pays the price for trying to live by the law, but for his son, he is murdered. And
it's very
Batman.
You ever Dance with the Devil by the Pale Moonlight?
Yes. Like what? Wow. Matt is wearing his dad's red robe, like I don't even know, a cape. It's almost like a cape for him.
And it's like the MO of whoever killed Dad, they threw a rose on top of him, which is also very Batman-like.
Yeah, I was thinking kiss from the rose. That's all that was playing in my head.
Man, this movie could have used some Seal.
Yes,
truly.
100%.
They had everyone else. Why not just throw Seal in?
Exactly.
And then the next scene, we pretty much fast forward to adult Matt with his red leather condom on his body.
And what is his hair?
So you guys weren't fans of his hair? Yeah, it was some real bedhead that I was like, okay, the hair is pretty good. I liked the hair.
And like the red, like, is Matt Murdock supposed to have red hair? Because I saw them really trying for this. The little kid had the red hair as well.
Yeah, I believe in the comics he has red hair. I don't think in the TV show I don't think Charlie Cox has red hair on the show.
No.
But yeah, I think they were trying to go for the comic accurate Matt Murdock look.
It was not working.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys I guess we haven't really talked, like, what do you guys think of Ben Affleck as Matt Murdock, like his performance?
He's pretty good, I guess. I don't know.
I wasn't
mad
by
at
it.
Yeah.
My husband asked several times if this was a comedy. And if it was Ben Affleck's first movie because the acting was so bad. So he had hard opinions about that.
Harsh. I think he's okay in this.
I didn't think he was bad. Like, honestly, was it camp? Yes. Did they think they were doing camp at the time? No.
Right.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I think his best scenes are the scenes that he has with Jennifer Garner. Like when he's performing opposite her, like there's very clearly chemistry there, and we've read the receipts, and we can see why that's the case.
It's the emails, y'all.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, like that costume. It did look like he was wearing a condom on his head. 100%.
Yeah, I mean,
it was.
Yeah, it was interesting watching in this one the costume, and then comparing it to in the TV show, because I know in the first season, whatever, they do that thing that now is really annoying, where they're not actually Daredevil till the final episode.
Yeah,
right.
But then in season 2, his like he has the like suit and the costume, but it's like armored leather, like it's got plating and stuff on it. And like that actually makes sense. Right. In this, he's just wearing a leather jacket.
Yeah, what was fun is that when he showed up in She-Hulk, when Charlie Cox showed up there, he was wearing like the classic like old school Daredevil costume, like the very first one he ever wore from the 60s. So it's like the yellow and red one, which that was a kind of fun thing. I don't know why. Yeah. Like I was trying in my head to like figure out like why did he switch costume? Why did he so radically change it? And it's a weird thing because Daredevil operates at night, and that's a very like people are gonna see you, man, if you're dressed up in yellow. But that was a fun thing.
Next scene is we see Matt's kind of day-to-day life, how he functions as a blind man. Sorry, I thought someone was coming in the office. So we kind of see him getting ready. He sleeps in a sensory deprivation chamber that looks like a coffin.
Yeah,
I thought, you know what? I had looked away from the TV because it was a hard watch, right? I was like, why he in the tub again? He in that tub.
Gotta drown the sounds out.
I thought he was in the bathtub. I was like, you know what? I like this white man bathing all the time in this movie. It's excessive, but I feel like it might be beneficial.
I mean, he does wear leather a lot of the time.
True.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. And then we see him go and meet Foggy, who played by Jon Favreau. I will never call him Foggy. He is Happy
Hogan.
Yep, there he is.
And like, for someone who is a trusted friend, you ask him for the honey and he gives you mustard.
He was mad at him.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But he should know. Like, Matt could smell that mustard a mile away. That's why he switched the cups.
And a honey bear feels different than like a mustard container.
Yeah.
He knew Matt would know.
Yeah. And then someone enters the cafe and Matt smells her right away.
So while she's still outside.
So let me get this straight.
She's not in the door yet.
He apparently has a way of being able to just it seems like he only could smell beautiful women.
Yeah.
Because Matt is not sleeping with a girl that's not cute. Like, he's only tens in his.
I mean, when you first see him as an adult, like there's a message on his machine from a woman who is just like, "Oh, you've stood me up too many times. I'm done with this." And she sounds hot. Like, I don't know.
That's someone's sister. Whose sister?
Oh, it's Colin Farrell's sister, actually.
Yes.
Yes. What? Who, by the way, Colin Farrell, MVP of this movie easily, right?
Yeah,
we all agree.
100%.
Yeah.
Give me a whole movie about Bullseye.
Yes. Well, recently on the radio show that I do for the Roxy Radio, we did a top 5 Colin Farrell movies list because we were kind of celebrating the Banshees of Inisherin coming out. And I didn't mention Daredevil like in my 5, but afterwards I was like, I don't remember much from Daredevil because this is before I had rewatched it for this. But the only scene I do remember is the scene where Colin Farrell kills a woman on the plane.
Yes.
Like flicking a peanut into her mouth.
That was the best.
Turns out totally deserved it.
Yeah.
Was American Outlaws on your top?
Yeah, I've never seen that actually.
Oh, We
I'll
need
add
to
the
do
list.
it for the
Yeah.
podcast, but from what I remember, Y2K Jackie, she loved her some American Outlaws.
Nice.
My favorite Colin Farrell movie is when him and Britney Spears used to make out on the red carpet and share their gum. My favorite. It was cinema to the highest degree.
Just 90-minute loops on YouTube of that.
Yeah,
That's
I could watch it. I would watch it. I would watch it. Hot, steaming.
So in enters Electra, and Matt's like, watch this. So he gets up, goes to like the condiment where they keep the condiments, and she's sitting right there, sipping her coffee, not really looking up, because she probably gets hit on like 10 times a day. And he's like, can you pass me the honey? And she's like, it's right there. He's like, well, can you hand it to me? And she's like, what are you? And then she looks up as he's like, blind. Yeah.
Matt Murdock. Nice.
It's a great pickup line. That's pretty good.
A pretty sweet line.
I do have to say, my girl Jen, she was rocking a honey bronze set of extensions. They were curled, glazed, glowing. Her freckles were popping out in the face. She had fake green lenses.
So distracted by the green eyes.
Yeah,
in this movie.
not well, in the comic book, I guess she has green eyelids and eyelids. Her color eyes are green, but our girl Jen is a brown. I knew that before I even read it.
I watched Alias. I remember.
I mean, I will say this is probably the most beautiful I've seen her look. Like, I just loved the hair, the soft, curly, wavy hair, and yeah, the dewy skin, not a whole lot of makeup.
The girl was glowing, and her arms were toned. Her belly was just slim. She used to be a ballerina, y'all. I don't know if you know this, but and so I feel like that came in handy with her martial arts training, and she was already on Alias. So,
sure.
But some of the fighting scenes that we get into later didn't feel like natural. It was like, it's almost like when someone's learning a dance, you could see them counting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I was a little disappointed with the fight scene.
Yeah, but it does make sense. Well, it's just based on Elektra in this movie and Jennifer Garner in here. Like, she's probably, other than Colin Farrell, the best part of this movie. And it makes sense. Like, once they like had the opportunity to follow up Daredevil, and it was clear that like Ben Affleck probably wasn't going to do it, and they weren't sure what to do with Daredevil 2. They're like, well, let's spin off Elektra into her own movie and see how that works.
They had already made they were already going to make the Elektra movie.
Okay.
And there was going to be a cameo with Ben Affleck.
I think that's actually, I think that was filmed. I think that is a deleted scene.
Yeah, but
I think it's just him like flipping in the background or something. Like, he doesn't actually do anything. Like, you don't see his face, but he's like flipping around.
Yeah.
Doing some Daredevil shit.
They took it out because they weren't going to make another one. But
right.
Yeah. So like you were saying, Jackie, they were flirting with each other. And all he's trying to do is get her name, but he's getting a little bit too pushy, I
Pretty
feel.
aggressive. Yeah. Uncomfortably aggressive, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
We also see sometime in this time frame Matt lawyering, and he only defends innocent people.
Right. And he can tell that because he can sense their heartbeats.
Exactly. And
unless
then
there's a pacemaker.
In the director's cut.
In the director's cut.
And then if the bad guys get off, he then just turns into no longer, I guess he's still serving justice, but he just goes
Batman
after
who
them
kills
at night.
people.
Exactly.
He's no different than Punisher to an extent.
Yeah.
But
they're paired up a lot in the comics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even in the TV show, that was like the thing with when John Bernthal shows up as Punisher. It's like, we're not so different, you and I.
But so like there's I mean, I guess the next scene, right? That guy gets off and he follows him to the biker bar and like murders those 8 dudes or whatever. And it's like, you can't make it any more obvious that this is you, Matt Murdock. Because you say, I sure hope justice doesn't find you. And then when you killed him, you're like, justice found you. You're like, oh, it's you.
Yeah, you're the guy. Also, when he shows up in that biker bar, it's a very funny moment where like you cut in and you're seeing people in the bar, and then some guy's like, hey, look at that. And it's just Daredevil perched up in the window.
Apparently,
like,
the
not
actor
hiding at all.
The actor that yelled that is The Rock's cousin.
Oh.
The fun fact I read.
Amazing.
Good for him.
I do love the corny line where he's like, and you see that light, it's not like, I think he's something to
Here,
the
I
regards.
wrote it down.
Oh, okay.
I wrote it down. Hold on.
He like slams the guy under a speeding train, right? And
Yeah. So the fight continues into the subway. He throws the guy onto the tracks, and I guess he's so injured he can't get up. And he says, "See that light at the end of the tunnel? That's not heaven. That's the C train." Which I really wish he would have said, "That's the D train" for Daredevil. That was a missed opportunity.
Sure. But then he makes up for it by, after that, hanging around the crime scene for a while and then making 2 big D's out of gasoline or whatever. So that later, when he's gone, the reporter can flick his lighter and show that it says DD.
I don't believe the D train goes near Hell's Kitchen, so at least they were accurate about that.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so you're telling me that this is a full-on crime scene. They already have like everyone there traipsing around, collecting evidence. No one has noticed this strange liquid on the ground. That must be a gel. It can't be liquid. It wouldn't hold its DD form.
Right.
And then the reporter is the one that notices it. And
Joey
then
Pants, he's a great reporter.
and then catches it on fire, and then he's like, "I know who did this." Like, hire the reporter, police department.
Turns out
He's doing their
Daredevil's an
job.
ACAB movie. Who knew?
So then we see Matt goes back home. Obviously, he's very injured. He extracts his own tooth that had been broken in the fight. He's chomping on narcotics like they're candy. And then he goes to confession and talks to the priest there and tells him all of his sins. And then this is when we get the Jennifer Garner scene. And then I wrote fight flirting.
Oh, yeah, this is the playground fight, right?
Yes, this is a staple of Michelle Yeoh movies as well. The flirt fighting, which is super. This was just like so goofy and fun. It was like, it's stupid, but it's really fun when they're just like doing it, and they're going through the playground and they're fighting together. And she's like, she doesn't seem super surprised that he knows how to fight, even though he's blind.
Yeah,
like she's like, "Oh, how are you doing this?" Oh,
No,
all right.
what she does is like, she fights him, but like she doesn't fight all the way. Like she's only half-assing it, and he's like, "Give it to me, give me all you got." Like, what is happening?
The Princess
Let's jump on the seesaw.
Yeah,
it's
like the Princess Bride when he's like, "I'm not left-handed." Like that's like the same moment in this.
And then all the kids in the playground cheer for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is she a teacher? Is that why she's at a playground? I was so like, there's just random children there.
They were walking, and they happened to walk through a park because he's literally chasing her down, trying to get her name from the coffee shop, and she's like, "Bitch, leave me alone." And he tries.
No, Matt Murdock.
When he grabs her hand, they just happen to be walking through the park when she has to let him know, "You don't get to touch me." Like,
there is one really great moment in this that I thought, or a moment I thought was really great, when like they have like a first couple minutes or whatever of a fight, and then they like stop to take their jackets off.
Yes.
And they like strike their their pose ready to fight, and Matt Murdock has thrown his cane in the air, and we didn't see that, and he catches it right before they start fighting again. That shit was pretty cool.
That was cool.
But also, sort of to what Danielle mentioned a little bit earlier, as far as the fights go, like having done 20 Michelle Yeoh movies in a row, these fights are all right. There are no Michelle Yeoh fights. You know?
Right.
It made me, I think, like, I remember watching it, I was disappointed because the fight scenes in Alias were really good. But like, Sydney didn't always win. She got her ass beat quite a bit, but it felt like you thought she could actually fight. In this movie, it does not. And some of the like fight sequences and stuff don't add up. And then some of the shit that both of them do separately alone to train is weird.
Yeah.
Like, if the fight scenes were just elevated a little bit better, I think it would have been so much, like, I'd have been like, okay, the plot sucks, but those fight scenes though, like you're not giving me anything to work with here, people. Also, Jennifer Garner knocked Ben Affleck the fuck out. She hit him too hard and he blacked out for a little bit.
Amazing.
So he talks about this later, like after they're married, he's like, yeah, that pretty much should have just been shown, like, this is what our marriage is like, or
just
get my ass,
so much
domestic
work.
violence.
Yeah, my wife beating my ass pretty much. So
the next scene is in Kingpin's office, and I wrote, "The mummy wants out," because that guy was in The Mummy and I didn't catch his name at first, but apparently it's Nicholas Nachios, right?
Oh, Electra's father.
yeah,
the guy from The Mummy. Yeah.
They're Greek, supposedly.
Yeah. And essentially Kingpin's like, no. And then, but he does it kind of like, well, how's your daughter? It sure suck if she lost the other parent type thing. And then with the, like, that's the end of that scene. There's no resolution or anything. He just says he wants out. And then Kingpin's like, I don't think so.
Yeah, which Michael Clarke Duncan also really good in this.
So good.
He's very good.
And I honestly do like the lighting that they have when he is on screen with like those blues in the background. It reminded me of very much like a Hype Williams music video, especially like lighting for darker skinned Black people. They don't always do it right. And like, if you've ever watched that show Insecure, they actually do a really great job from a lighting perspective. And I just feel like they did a really good job with that backlight and background for him. So I did like it. It's not the best I've ever seen, but I did notice that.
Yeah, he looks really great, and they're always shooting him from low angles too, and he's already a big guy, so it's like he makes a very physically imposing Kingpin, and he's got that like deep Michael Clarke Duncan voice. Like he's a great villain in this movie.
Yes.
He gained 40 pounds for this role. He was already at 290. He lifted weights for 30 minutes a day and power lifted with 1 or 2 reps a day, as well as eating whatever he wanted.
He said he wouldn't do it again if they did the next movie unless they like paid him like $20 million or something. But
good for him.
Yeah.
And there was backlash, and Michael Clarke Duncan was concerned about the fact that he was Black while Kingpin in the comics is white. And although his performance was well received, there are a lot of people who took issue with the fact that they cast Michael Clarke Duncan.
20 years later, ain't shit changed. So I think the best bet is just keep on doing it until they get used to it, I guess.
This has to be one of the earliest examples of like colorblind comic book casting too. That's a pretty cool thing.
So they were looking at some white wrestlers for the role, but the acting ability wasn't coming together. So that's what made them ask Michael. And like you said, he did an amazing job.
He did. Where so we get
it must be the party at this point, no? Or no, before they have sex before the party.
Yeah, so we see I have dad studied with different since I was 5. So obviously it's a throwaway scene where Elektra just explains how she knows so many martial arts.
Because her mom, I think her mom was killed, and her dad wanted her to be able to protect herself.
Right.
And we find out more about her mom and stuff in that backstory in the Elektra movie.
Yes. And then we get another scene with Kingpin where his henchmen are kind of like, hey, the press wants a Kingpin. He's like, I'll get them a Kingpin. And then randomly hires Bullseye, who's off just like hustling people in Ireland.
He's doing what he does, throwing darts and
introduced with this like Irish rap song where it's like, I'm Irish but I ain't a leprechaun, like that's what and it's like, all right, this is Bullseye.
Let's
go. And he kills that dude.
When I was watching it, I'm like, okay, I know that he had his native accent in this movie, but it also seems like Bullseye doesn't talk. So which one is it going to be? And I guess he's just a man of few words, most of those being, I missed. You made me miss.
Yeah.
My hands.
So we see he's hustling this older gentleman at darts, and the guy doesn't want to pay, is trying to get out of it. Best 2 out of 3. And Bullseye's like, give me my fucking money. And so the guy eventually pays him, but like smart mouths him as Bullseye is walking out. So Bullseye takes out a paperclip.
Question: if Bullseye is in Ireland, who the fuck is this guy talking shit about him being Irish?
I think he's in England.
Is he?
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
That might be it.
Okay.
That probably is true.
And he gets death by acupuncture, which is
Yeah, he just gets a lot of straightened out paper clips to his little waddle. I guess they go into the jugular,
Right.
but you don't fuck with the bullseye, is what we learn.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, that he's
And-
very good at getting a bullseye at darts, because that's all he gets, right?
That's it. Yeah.
And that
and we have, and he does like the dramatic beanie off to see his bullseye scar before he kills him via paperclip.
very weird. But also I was turned on.
Colin Farrell very hot in this movie. It's
so hot.
I think this
Come
is such an
on.
interesting like character for Colin Farrell to be playing, because it's very much like the like not leading, obviously he's like whatever supporting fifth build guy in this movie, but like action villain character guy, but like also just a weird little freak. And here we are 20 years later, and he only plays weird little freaks now.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of, we didn't know how to cast him yet in 2003.
right.
He
He has to be a weird little freak who is sad now. That's like his perfect mode.
He was amazing in the Batman.
Yes.
Yeah, he was good. And one of those, like, it was a weird thing at first where it was like, why did they cast Colin Farrell when they're going to put like a bunch of prosthetics on him and make him unrecognizable?
He was amazing.
But he is very good in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that show will ever happen.
Oh yeah,
They're
they're supposed to make like a penguin show. Yeah.
Who knows with HBO Max?
Yeah.
Also, he was really good in The Lobster.
Yeah. No, The Lobster's great.
Yeah.
The Killing of a Sacred Deer is also super weird. He's great in that. Banshees of Inisherin. After Yang, he was amazing in that this year. So good.
I will say he hands down is the most interesting character in this whole movie. I'm like, just tell me more about Bullseye.
Yes.
Like, I don't give a shit about anyone else. Just more of this, please.
So-
And I would like to know, when he says he doesn't miss, does that translate to other things? I just want to know.
I would assume.
Scientific research.
And we might have to work at it just
Yeah.
to see.
They're coupled, just to be.
But I just want to know, like, what else he doesn't miss at. You know what I'm saying? I'm curious.
I feel you.
So I'm looking at a list of I found of the differences between the PG-13 and the
Director's cut,
the director's cut, and it says here the introduction of Bullseye arriving at the airport and going through the metal detector. Is that not in the theatrical cut?
No.
Oh my god. Okay. So, right, it's after the scene. I think it's like a couple scenes later where like he's coming to America.
Yeah.
And it's him riding an escalator in an airport, just with his arms out like he's Christ. For the whole, like, for no reason. He's the only one there, and there's just like soft angelic music playing as he's riding up the escalator. And he goes through the metal detector, and of course he sets it off, and he's like got his sunglasses, and he lets him down, so he's looking over the top of him at the guy who's wanding him, and like it goes over his belt, and he's got a big belt buckle, and it's like beeps, and he's just like, it's the weirdest, most sexual tension between a villain and an airport security guard. So then he takes off like he takes out like a pen and his belt buckle and his sunglasses and puts them in the thing to go through the thing again. And he's like, oh, like holds up his finger to say like, oh, wait. And he spits out another paperclip and like drops it in the bin and goes through, all while this like weird operatic music is playing. And it makes no sense. Like it's setting up
Nothing.
all of that like weird unearned Christ stuff with Bullseye, because like later at the end of in the church, right, he gets shot through the hands, and he's like, hand, like, and he's posing like he's crucified and stuff. But that all starts here on the airport escalator. So that's what you're missing. The director's cut, because it's wild.
I found the still of that, so I am currently switching my background.
perfect.
So yeah, the next scene after that which we all missed except for Mike D, is the airplane scene where he gets sat next to a very chatty grandma.
Yeah.
And he just can't take it anymore.
Yeah. The only scene that I remembered from this movie.
Turns out she's like casually racist, so she deserves it.
Yes.
Yes. Very much so. And so he takes it. There he is.
Why does he look
Incredible.
like Usher? I just need to let it burn.
Oh my God.
So he takes it upon himself. He's going to rectify the situation. And he just plays a little like little football, desk football with a peanut right into her throat. She chokes and passes out because she can no longer breathe.
She did.
And the stewardess comes by and she's like, "Oh, she fell asleep." And he's like, "Yeah, let's go with that."
Yeah, so good. It's single-handedly like the scene of the movie. I think it's fantastic.
And I love that it's just cutting from like his POV where he's got the headphones in and he's just listening to like hard blasting rap music or punk music and stuff, and she's just going on and on and on, and he's just a little flick.
I feel like number one, he did his due diligence of trying to drown her out.
That's right, he tried.
Yeah.
And number two, we have all been there on the airplane where it's like, I very obviously have my headphones in. Stop fucking talking to me.
Even if she wasn't casually racist, like maybe she deserved it. You know?
You're not wrong.
So the next scene I have, Nick Carter is being beat up by Kingpin's henchmen. So it's just a guy who happens to look like Nick Carter in the alley.
Nick Carter's did I miss that?
Yeah, wait a
Nick
second.
Carter adjacent.
I know Meredith Grey was in this movie, but
yes. Why? I don't know. And I mean, okay, if we're gonna have a second movie, it makes sense because in the comic books, she does date him.
Karen Page, she's
Yeah.
like the big love interest for Daredevil in the comics and in the TV show. I mean, that's her character as well.
Right.
But yeah, she pops up for one scene in theatrical cut. I don't know if she's in any more of the director's cut, Mike.
She is in the director's cut.
Oh, she's in more of it?
She's in more of it. She gets the big cracks the big clue for them in the case to help Coolio.
Which again, we haven't seen. We haven't.
No.
So they
No.
Coolio's being framed, right, for the murder of this woman. So Foggy and Matt break into her apartment and they take Matt like can feel on her desk that she wrote something in pen on a piece of paper. So they like copy it down and it says Mom 6'8" or something like that. And she realizes like, maybe you're looking at Ellen Pompeo is like, maybe you're looking at it all wrong. And she flips it over. So it says like WOW 89. And 89 is the day of her death, and WOW is the initials of Kingpin's little assistant guy whose name I forget.
Okay.
And they put it
It's
together.
like Wesley Owl something or something, something like that. Yeah.
That she had a meeting that day with him, and that's the day she died. And the Kingpin, pacemakers.
I would have been like World of Warcraft. This
Yeah.
is not adding up.
Exactly.
Level 89 in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, so she comes back for a second scene, basically.
Okay. I mean, that's cool. Yeah, she's barely in this movie, the theatrical
Yeah.
cut. So
Yeah.
there's that.
And I also see here there's a love scene between Elektra and Matt Murdock.
Yes, it's very
Not in the
sensual.
director's cut.
That's not in the director's cut.
No.
So
that was
they
cut.
added it as like I think filler because there's other stuff they had to cut or something. I don't know.
They
Fascinating.
want it more like focused on the relationship of Elektra.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, the director says that like his biggest mistake on this movie was that he tried to add too much. He tried to know Matt's origin story. He tried to talk about Elektra. He tried to have Bullseye, Kingpin, like all the things that make Daredevil. He tried to just like cram everything in there, and it was just too much. And I think it was too much, but also I feel like I got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
yeah.
And it felt very slow in places where I'm like, you could have cut this out and put something interesting in, and it would have been net neutral.
Sporadically interesting, Jackie.
Sporadically interesting. This is true. So Daredevil is listening to not Nick Carter get beat up, and he hears Kingpin. He's always just listening for people getting beat up in alleys to mention Kingpin.
Yeah.
it's his whole process.
We wouldn't understand.
But Elektra convinces him to keep his ass on the rooftop with him instead of going when they're together.
Well, so,
yeah.
That's the next scene is Elektra. He takes Elektra up to the rooftop and they're kind of just standing there talking. And he's like, it's about to rain. She's like, you're crazy. And he's like, I can feel the air changing. I can smell.
Aaron Smith's cousin because they know when it's going to rain. I'm making a reference to Mean Girls.
Okay. If my girlfriend was here, she would have laughed at it.
And so she allows him to feel her face, and then he feels her necklace, and it almost looks like an Egyptian cartouche, but she said like it was given to her for protection, essentially. And then she's like, well, if it's about to rain, we need to get inside. And he's like, no, because when the rain hits surfaces, I can see, and I want to see your face.
Yes.
Paint you like
French ladies.
This definitely felt like they saw the upside down kiss in the rain scene in Spider-Man, and they were like, how can we do that for this? Like, what's our version of this?
And then, like Danielle said, he hears another fight in the alley, and they mention Kingpin, but she's like, no, stay with me. And so stay with her, he does, all the way to Pound Town.
Yeah,
he leaves in the director's cut. That's wild.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, there's no sex, there's no love scene. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets his red condom ready, and they do it.
His full body,
costumes on.
He's wearing,
it's not like a hot and heavy sex scene like I normally see in these movies, but it's like a slow, sensual.
And she's like exploring all of his scars, and
yes. It is actually really interesting to watch that in this movie now, considering like most superhero movies now just won't have that. Like there's no sex in superhero movies, especially in the MCU stuff. So to have that in Daredevil, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of weird. Like it's cool. It's great.
Yeah,
used to have sex in movies.
Normally the like relationship stuff always feels like, this wasn't needed sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I honestly don't think they did is probably one of the better parts of this movie is their relationship. Doesn't make sense that he was like he loved her after 2 days. No,
he loved her at first whiff. Danielle,
you're right. He smelled that punan from down the street and was ready.
And so the next morning he wakes up and she's already gone, but she's left a gala invitation on his pillow. And so
where did she carry that? I didn't see not one purse. I didn't see no pocket.
She was all wet.
Yeah, where was that?
Yeah, that's true.
And it was raining.
Yeah, like where'd she hide that? Her thong?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, he gets the gala invitation. He goes to his office, and Ellen Pompeo is like, "Oh, this came for you. It's got a +1." And Foggy's like, "Oh, +1, sweet." And
that was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
So he got two invitations because he got the one at the office, but then she left because he didn't want to go.
Right.
And Happy really wanted to be the +1.
Yeah,
he didn't even make it a choice. He was like, Meredith Grey was trying to flirt her way into an invitation, and Foggy's like, "Yo, homie, let's do this.
Let's go make some money. Like, let's make some connections." Yeah.
So they do end up going to the gala, living Foggy's wildest dreams, and they meet up with the reporter, and this is where Matt kind of gets intel about Kingpin, and I think this is where Matt kind of puts it all together who Kingpin is. I don't know, it's very foggy how that
it's very Foggy Nelson how that happens. I think because they run into the Kingpin, they run into Michael Clarke Duncan, and they are talking to him, and I think Matt starts to piece it together that like something's off about this guy, like he's probably responsible for all the crime here. Oh wait, he's the Kingpin.
Yeah. I mean, with the names so on spot on with just like his physical attributes, how did we not know? You know, but
he gave us all the clues.
Speaking of Uric, I guess is his name. He actually works for the New York Post in this movie because in the comic books he works for the Daily Bugle, but they didn't have the rights to use that because Sony owns Spider-Man.
Makes sense.
So they made him work for the New York
For the New York
Post.
Post, yeah.
That's wild. That it's like, I mean, I guess it makes sense that like the name of that would have to be stuck to Sony, but
Yeah.
It's also weird they didn't like make up a different newspaper like they used a real one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's probably just easier.
Yeah. Just somebody writing the scripts like, oh God, we can't use the Daily Bugle. Like they're just looking around like, oh, I got the New York Post today. All right,
Yeah.
New York Post, there it is.
Maybe they got a little kickback for using the name of the post
That's
in the
true.
movie.
That's totally possible.
A little product placement.
Yeah, when you got a reporter like Ben Urich on the staff, that's good publicity for the New York Post for sure.
Yeah.
This
He should
guy
be
knows his
running
stuff.
The police department.
He's throwing lighters all over the place. He's got it. He's got this.
He knows for sure there's no alligators in the sewer.
He's
Yes.
having a ball because he knows that what they don't know is that they're in the Matrix, baby.
That's right. He knows there is no stake.
Ken did ask, is this before or after he plugged into the Matrix?
This is the life that they gave him when he went back into the
Yes.
Matrix.
Right.
Yes.
This is-
And Elektra enters. She looks gorgeous, and Happy sees her at the same time.
Matt sniffs her.
smells her.
Right.
And he's going up the stairs, and this flight of stairs has the most
Smoke.
smoky aerosol things happening on it than anyone has ever done in one room.
In cinematic history.
Yep.
And then so I'm in my brain, I'm like, oh, this is alluding to, this is how whoever he fights in the end scene is kind of going to be able to distort his senses, is like use smoke or use something like a fire extinguisher or something, never comes back into play. Never.
You and your
Yep.
smart brain.
All about the
Never
aesthetics.
happens. But he does get up to Elektra, and she does say, the only reason I got dressed up was to look beautiful for you.
And he goes, let me do a line of coke on your neck.
He does take a long, hard whiff.
I mean, I feel like, again, if we recall my timeline went over in the last episode, a lot of this shit might have just been written in the script so that Ben and Jennifer could have gotten their kicks off. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
Perhaps. And then we get a cut scene of Bullseye stealing a motorcycle.
Cool.
Apparently, Colin Farrell had never ridden a motorcycle prior to this scene.
Wow.
And well, he was riding the hell out of it. Hell, he was standing on it. He was crucified on it.
There it is.
Yes.
It's all coming together.
Yes.
Yeah. So when they were like, okay, we got to cut this Jesus escalator scene. What can we do? I got it. We're gonna make him steal a motorcycle.
There you go.
And he's gonna stand on it and spread his wings to fly. Like,
No matter what happens, he has to spread his arms around.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then we get cut back to the gala. Dad, who is the guy from The Mummy, is watching Elektra and Matt Murdock. And then Kingpin walks up, is kind of shaking him down. And then he's essentially like, goodbye, and puts a rose in his pocket and walks away.
You gonna
And
die.
so then we see Dad is just like piecing out of the gala because he knows something's up. And so Elektra follows him and is like, Papa, why must you run? Gets into the limo with him. And then
But it's a weird altercation because like she's trying to follow her dad, and when they're getting to the limo, his own security, who knows her, who are her security, won't let her into the car. So she knocked one of them out or punch him in the nose. I'm like, that was just weird. Like it'd be one thing if the dad was like, you have to stay away from me, but he didn't. Like it was just an odd interaction. But they bounce. And
they did. And then she sees through the sunroof, Daredevil is like hopping building to building, following them like a little gargoyle.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden here comes Bullseye, and he has his like little belty throwing stars. And so he throws them all hits the drivers, which caused them to crash the limo. And so Elektra and Dad are stumbling out. At the same time, Daredevil is fighting with Bullseye, causes him to miss.
That was a source mistake.
Yeah.
Which pisses him off.
Yes.
But he grabs Daredevil's billy club and throws it at Dad, and like it hits him in the chest and kills him.
Right.
Like, does Elektra not see this bald man on a motorcycle chasing them? Why does she think, what, does she think Daredevil and him are in cahoots? Like, bitch, 1 + 1 is not equaling 2 here. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, because immediately Elektra is like, Daredevil must die.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
he was trying to save you. Like, you saw him like following you because there was this madman with a bullseye etched in his skull following you on a motorcycle. Like,
Sure.
who's
But
the bad guy here?
You just
She's
fucked
not
this
thinking
man.
straight. Her father just died. It's raining. She can't see a thing.
She just fucked this man the other day. She can't tell that's him.
And that jaw and those teeth, there's no way.
No
I can
way.
spot a Ben Affleck mouth from a mile away.
And is this where it leads into the wake me up inside scene? It's her
Coming up, I
Yes.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right into this where she starts training and the needle drop starts. And it was just like the biggest laugh I got out of the movie was when you just start hearing that piano and you hear like, wake me up inside. It's incredible. It's so good.
I have a question. Who's cleaning up that sand?
I have the same question. That is a mess, ma'am. A mess.
A hot mess. And like, what you training with after that? You cleaning up that sand and refilling it, sewing the bag? Like, who's doing this?
Somebody
And
is
that
resetting all
sand
those
is going to
pulleys.
scratch up the finish on that parquet floor. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
And what's with the curtains? Like, those curtains weren't just on the windows. I felt like they were just hanging aimlessly in the house because it didn't make no sense. Why these curtains keep flowing as you try to
Flowing dangerously close to open flames because she has candles lit everywhere. So
Well,
she can
understand.
practice in kind of the dark.
Evanescence is playing, so there's no rules. You get
the
it.
setup for this whole thing is weird. Like, no normal person would do this shit.
Oh, and just prior to this scene is the funeral scene where she makes sure that Matt knows that she has a vendetta against Daredevil now.
Right. And it's the
kinda
second
like-
the second evidence needle drop is for her funeral, right? Is that what I'm thinking of?
I think it was
thought they were
prior.
before that. I
Oh, is
thought
it-
it
is
was
it
when they
before
were on the
this?
street or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. It might just be like Elektra's favorite band, and that's why.
Yeah. It's just
They-
what she's listening to as she
Yeah.
practices. And she uses size. All of my knowledge of size comes from
Ninja
Teenage
Turtles.
Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
But she uses them completely wrong, which I had to then validate my knowledge on the Googles. But size are used to essentially like disarm other people. So she's putting her fingers in the wrong places. Size are not sharp to stab people. Like, it's all sorts of wrong. And out of this entire movie, I think that's what bothered me the most.
What bothered me the most was how she went out. Because it don't make no sense to me.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah. So while Elektra is using size incorrectly to Evanescence, Daredevil is suiting up because now he has to go and hunt down Bullseye to save Elektra. So then they
This
meet on a
fucking-
rooftop.
This fucking scene, okay, I'm just
Right.
gonna say it. 0 fucking sense. Okay?
How did
None.
Bullseye know they were there?
Right.
How did they know each other were going to be up on the rooftop? Why is
Right.
there laundry? Like, it,
And why is she so close to him that she don't know is her boo? And she fools on, like, Matt, I thought you knew how to fight. You getting stabbed like this? And when I say my boy was taken out of a whole, like, he was done. After he got shanked, he was on the floor.
yeah, it just didn't. He can dodge fucking bullets. Like, how did he not dodge a sigh.
Because he doesn't want to hurt his love.
Well, like I could see
I
him
guess,
taking
I
it
don't know.
easy on
I-
her.
I don't
But
want
it's also
my
life
love
and
to
death.
be right. I don't want my love to be hurt. So I get stabbed and I'm out for the count. And here comes Baldy from Ireland
True.
about to fucks my girl up. Like, make it make sense.
It doesn't.
He couldn't even get up. And then she was like, okay, I'm gonna go take him. No, you can't. You can't even use the weapons that you own.
Well, my favorite part of this scene is like she stabs him in the shoulder with the sigh, and then she takes his little helmet off because she wants to look into the eyes of her dad's killer, realizes it's Matt, and is like, oh, let me put this helmet back on you.
I'm gonna
so no one
correct
knows
you.
who you are.
It's not a helmet, it's a condom. Let's stay consistent.
Words mean things.
But she's immediately like, oh,
I was
my
wrong.
bad. I'll go after the bald guy now. Sorry, I know you weren't trying to hurt me. I'm like, this could have been rectified at the funeral if you had just listened to him for 2 fucking seconds.
Yeah.
She's blinded by rage.
Or if
She
he
doesn't know
would
what
have
to
said,
do.
or he would have said, babe, it's me. I'm Daredevil, and I didn't kill your daddy.
Just do this. He just puts his hands over
Yeah.
his face.
See?
Like, see,
It's me.
it's me.
It's like magic. You
I mean,
want me
that's
to
the
go get the
thing.
condom? I'll do it.
That's the thing of being in the third year of a pandemic or whatever, where we're all wearing masks all the time. You can still recognize who everybody is when they're coming.
Yes.
You get ruined everything about movies now.
Like the Clarke Kent effect. Glasses
Yeah.
randomly. Oh, I have no idea who that is.
Where'd
Right.
Jackie go?
Oh my god.
Oh, okay, she's back.
And then she's back. Jackie, there's an impersonator here.
Shocking. So yeah, Bullseye randomly shows up. He has no intel as to what rooftop they're on, but somehow shows up.
He found him. He sniffed him out too. They all
He
have
never
super
misses.
sniffing powers.
They all have super sniffing. It's
And
actually an alternate universe.
So like the way that she goes out and like the way he kills her is just there it's not even a good fight. It's so
No.
bad.
He
And
flips
then-
the card at her. I'm like, okay, he's gonna do the paperclip trick,
Right.
but with a card and slice her jugular, and then that's why she's dead. No, he just nicks her with it, and he's like, "You're a pretty good fighter, but I'm magic," and then stabs
All
her.
right,
with her own
Gambit.
side.
He kisses her
And-
in the first cut. It's real weird.
And then she
Really?
crawls.
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's gross.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a longer fight, I think, because he does the card thing, and then he stabs her, and he like picks her up by her neck, like her throat, like he's choking her,
Yeah,
don't
he
remember if
does choke her.
and then he kisses her, and it's like a real gross, like weird thing, obviously, and then he like yeets her to Daredevil and like throws her down onto that roof, and then she like crawls over to him, which I think is what Danielle was saying. So,
Yeah.
I don't know
like,
if it's just that 2-second moment where he kisses her has been cut
Oh,
out,
that's
but it's
gross.
gross.
Yeah, the kissing part, but he does choke her. She does get to the building somehow. She's crawling. And then Popo comes through.
Right.
So I think Matt has to make a decision if he's gonna get his bitch ass up or stay with his girl.
Yeah.
He gets his bitch ass up.
And I will say that there is an homage to the comic books, because I guess when comic books were being written in the olden day, they couldn't show the piercing going all the way through people. And so it always just poked the costume up to show that they were actually stabbed.
Interesting.
Right.
And so that they did that in this movie with Elektra stabbing. Her costume just raises out the back instead of it going through the fabric.
Fascinating.
Neat.
Oh, yeah. I
Censorship
have a
is
little bit of
weird.
comic book knowledge. And now we are back to what is the opening scene of the movie, where Daredevil is injured and like hugging the cross on top of the church he always goes to.
And I think that's
Um,
like a famous comic book cover or something, right? Like the Daredevil on the crucifix on the church, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Or is an image at least I remembered. I don't know if that's
Right.
the fuck knows.
I believed you. So.
Sounded real to me.
So then he falls into the church. Is that correct?
Yeah, he falls, and the priest strolls over and's like, Matt, and has a candle by his nose. Like, I don't know if he's trying to wake him up with the candle that is not, I don't even know if it was burning. It was weird.
He's woken up and he's like Ebenezer Scrooge coming out of bed. Like, he has the candle, the nightcap, all that.
And then Bullseye enters the church. So now we have fighting part 2. Somehow the details are very fuzzy because it was very long and the CGI was not great. But essentially they end up on the organ, and so then the pipes start falling. And there's more flippies and like fighting and like kicking off of organ pipes and things like that.
Well, I think Bullseye is using the organ because he's like exploiting Matt's, like, there's a lot of loud sound near him. It's going to mess up with his sonar thing, which is weirdly like loud sounds in a church. It's like a weirdly recurring 2000s comic book movie motif, because that's also in Spider-Man 3 with Venom and like the bell tower in the church that is like gets him off of the host's body and stuff.
Don't they also end up in a bell tower in the original Batman, 1989 Batman?
There may be a bell
that's where
tower
Joker
there.
falls from.
Yeah. No, I think you might be right. Yeah. Bell towers. They're a weirdly recurring thing that happen in comics.
I did write a paper about Alfred Hitchcock using quote unquote safe space for the climax of his movies. And
Sure.
so that
and Vertigo.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So what happens next? More fighting.
There was one
bats.
moment. There's bats. There's a moment in this fight too. I think it's a little bit later on where I was like, oh, this is just straight up the shot out of Spider-Man, where I think he's after the stained glass window is shattered and he's throwing all the like shards at him and he's just doing all like the acrobatic backflips and twists.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, this is how Spider-Man dodges the Green Goblin blade thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the exact same shot.
I mean, why waste CGI when you already have it?
True.
Just reskin it. It's
just find and replace. Put the Daredevil thing on there.
So the cops finally show up. At one point, Bullseye is throwing all of his belt stars and Daredevil's catching all of those. I'm like, so we're catching throwing stars, but cannot avoid a side to the shoulder. Got it.
Right.
Bullseye then starts monologuing about how Kingpin hired him so that we confirm who Kingpin is. Then we get Daredevil hears the sniper outside and is able to avoid being shot, but pivots Bullseye's hands so both hands are shot. And so now it looks like he's being crucified.
That's right.
He's like, my hands.
Yeah.
My beautiful hands. Look what you've done to him.
It all of a sudden turns into Stigmata. It's very odd.
And without that airport scene, you don't know where that all originates.
Right?
Facts.
I'm glad someone watched the director's cut. Then Daredevil just throws Bullseye out a window.
Yeah, he just murders it.
Yeah. R.I.P.
And he does land on the reporter's car as he's pulling up to the scene.
Which, by the way, there's another scene where the reporter goes to the ME's office because the Daredevil's, what's his stick thing called?
I think in the movie it's a billy club in the comics, or in the earlier comics at least. But I think it's a baton also, like one of those.
So
and it's his cane that he uses because he's blind.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
So they discover that this thing does all that.
Yes.
Apparently in real life. This is when it's revealed Kevin Smith is doing a cameo and
as Jack Kirby.
As Jack Kirby, another shout out.
Oh, that's fun.
Yes.
And they find out that the baton has like other functionalities, and it's actually a stick for blind people. I'm sorry, I'm using the incorrect verbiage. Yes. That.
And so earlier at the gala, the reporter makes a comment about the color of Daredevil's cane. And Daredevil's like, I wouldn't know, type thing. But it's
because I'm blind,
color.
you see.
Exactly.
Right.
And then it's the same color cane
right
in the morgue.
So that's when that's when the reporter starts putting all these pieces together. He starts figuring out who Daredevil is.
And then at the very end, he's about to write a story revealing who Daredevil is, and then he's like,
I'm changed my mind. I'm going to protect his secrets.
Like line by line.
Yeah, he just holds backspace for a while. Like a 10,000 word article. He's just like,
and why put all of that work into writing it? I know it's like for visual effect, but then to immediately like, period, I'm done. Delete. Like, what is happening?
He just had to get it out of his system.
Just had to get it out.
Yeah. It's like writing a letter to yourself.
Yeah.
So now we're at the point where Daredevil is going to go face off on Kingpin. Kingpin has sent off his security guard. It's a pride thing. He does mention, I'm from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing that means in the streets, I handle my business on my own, mano y mano.
Yeah.
Now that my henchman is dead, that means he's coming for me. I got to take care of this.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's Kingpin just waiting for Daredevil to come so they could square up.
And square up they do. Because Kingpin has killed the only two people Daredevil has loved.
This is true. Yeah.
Is the scene where Kingpin kills his bodyguards in the theatrical? It's not in this moment. It's way earlier in the movie, but he just like barehanded kills two of his bodyguards.
I
don't remember that.
Yeah, I think it's the scene right before Nachios comes and says he wants out, or like that's when it takes place in the movie. But the assistant dude, the WOW guy, I don't remember his name, shows up and is like, "Look at this!" And it's an article in the paper about like alleged Kingpin exists. I think
there was that scene.
And he starts talking about like, I forget exactly the context, but like, oh, in ancient Rome they used to cut the tongues out of their bodyguards so they wouldn't talk. And blah, he like uses his cane and just kills his two bodyguards. And then
your version of the movie sounds way better than ours.
Yes.
And then they're like, "Oh, your next appointment's here," and he's like wiping blood off the top of his cane as he walks in to go to talk to Nachios.
I feel like they should have done that. That's very Kingpin, but
yeah, it makes him real scary.
Yeah.
I don't know. Director's cut's pretty good.
Yeah. I found out halfway through watching the cut I watched that Coolio was in the director's cut, and I'm like, well, I made a very poor choice because if y'all don't know, I love Coolio, and so I was like, I need to go back and watch that. But I mean, we finished so late last night that I didn't have a chance. But I saw
Coolio in concert 2 days before he died.
I saw him a week before he died.
Did you really?
Yes.
Yeah, I was in Chicago for Riot Fest. Maybe it was a little more than 2 days, but it was like a 45-minute set. I watched Coolio do it. He was pretty good. And then it was like a surreal thing. Like, holy shit, that's weird.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I saw him I was at a tech convention and it was like the closing night. So they had a bunch of random ass singers.
And Coolio was one of them?
He was it was so weird.
Tretch from Naughty by Nature was there too.
Yes.
What?
Who else? One of the guys from Rascal Flatts.
The lead singer, right?
Yes.
Rascal himself?
Yes.
More of a flat guy.
Oh, Uncle Cracker was there.
What the fuck?
What a really weird assortment of people.
And it was fabulous. Like, I was so happy the whole time. And like, I was sending Danielle videos, and like my go-to karaoke song is Gangster's Paradise. So when that came on, I was in my element.
Yeah.
She just sent me a video with her just singing the whole damn song. That's about right.
It was like a 6-minute song.
Oh, it's so good. R.I.P. Coolio, man.
Oh yeah.
You know what that sound means? It's another episode of Game for a Movie, where we ask, are you game for a movie?
Tell me, Andre. There's no special features on that goddamn DVD, alright?
Oh, wow.
For Hansel and Gretel?
Hansel and Gretel.
You have a DVD of Hansel and Gretel.
She basically has sex with it, somehow.
Foreplay.
Yeah. Yes. She's chair foreplay.
I mean, they knocked it out of the park, which is why it's my number 3. So.
Oh!
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't be in it because this movie doesn't have women. But, it's right. It has one.
You would have 3 lines of dialogue.
So she has more than 3. Oh. Okay. So I'm actually gonna get, I earn my 4 sentences of dialogue rather than, here, have a paycheck. You just stood there on the screen. You're a sexy lamp.
Shape or form. Anyway, we're not.
Dark Phoenix too.
No.
Because they really hate each other, so we get to enjoy some wonderful comedic scenes of them hating each other so much that they get into physical altercations that include her biting ex-detective Phillips's dick.
Okay.
But we don't in a hot tub.
I know all of those words were English, but the way you constructed them, I'm lost.
I'm not finding the range of them very well. For those who haven't rated us or liked or given us a review, don't say that we haven't given you anything of value after listening to this podcast. You now know the difference between an R-rated dick and an NC-17 X-rated dick. You're welcome.
Thank you guys for listening to Game for a Movie, where we ask, are you game for a movie? We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's wrap this bad boy up. So essentially, Daredevil can hear the water in the pipes in the wall, and so he makes it rain so he can see where Kingpin is.
They make a meal of showing you that Kingpin has like floors with water under them.
Yes.
The first couple times you see his office, and then he makes it like rain in there.
And he does kick Kingpin's ass.
He does. This is true. But he does lose his mask in the process. Like Kingpin gets the mask off of him, right?
He does. So when this becomes a crime scene, because Daredevil is very intent on sending Kingpin to Riker's prison, are they not going to find the mask at the scene of the crime to know
It's wet. The DNA
was
is washed
Daredevil?
away.
Well, I think they do so like when Kingpin like realizes he's Matt Murdock, he has the mask off because he met him at the party before, and he's like, "I'll tell everyone who you are," and Matt's like, "Who's gonna believe you? I'm blind."
Yeah, true.
And then he's like, "All right, good point. All right, take
But
me away."
literally, I've never seen in any of these movies where the hero has been found out by every fucking person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he doesn't
Like,
care.
He's like, hello?
He's
I've
like,
never
what of it?
seen, like, Spider-Man very much works his ass off not to get his mask taken off. And this guy's just like, well,
I'm blind.
Yeah.
Who's gonna believe you?
right.
Yeah, it's a solid defense. It's not bad.
Honestly, yeah.
And so then he does say justice is served
Jesus.
Right.
to Kingpin. And then they're back he and Happy are back in the cafe. Happy does do this little like sniff before he drinks his coffee to make sure there's no mustard in it.
Yep.
And then this was a little fuzzy for me too. He gets, is it Elektra's necklace or is it a replica?
I think it's
It is Elektra's necklace, I think. Yeah.
But someone puts Braille on it?
Yeah, and it just says her name.
So
Got
it's kind of the hint that like, oh, she might actually be alive.
Yeah.
I did not get that.
Yeah,
from
I mean
that.
that's it's one of those things where like if you didn't know, there's also an Elektra movie that takes place after this.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching, I'm like, okay, like we're all pretending Elektra's dead, but unless her movie is a flashback movie, she survives.
Right.
Can't wait for us to do it, Jackie. Cannot wait.
One day you're gonna get there. Yeah. So yeah, it is the thing in the comics where like Elektra dies and then like it's revealed later that she is brought back or she is somehow still alive or whatever it is. And I think the TV show did that. Like,
Yeah.
They introduced her in season 2. I think she dies at the end of it, and then she comes back maybe in the Defenders show or in season 3 or something. But she comes back at some point.
Yeah. It is the Defenders, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all meshed in
It's
there.
all a blur. Yeah. Iron Fist really derailed the whole thing.
Fuck Iron Fist.
That's right.
So it does end with, like we said, the reporter writes this whole story revealing Daredevil's identity and then deletes it all. And he says, and it's this voiceover, and he's like, one man can make a difference. Go get him, Matt. And then Daredevil has a voiceover, and he's like, I'm forever in darkness, the guardian devil.
The Dark Knight. I mean, the Guardian Devil.
And that's cinema, y'all.
That
right.
is
There it is.
Daredevil.
Yes. Although there is a post-credit scene here too.
Well, I didn't watch that far.
Oh, you guys didn't see
Yeah.
the post-credits? Oh, there is a post-credit scene, and Mike D didn't even see it either.
There's my last scene is Coolio, so I didn't need a post-credit scene.
Is he really the last scene of the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets acquitted from the charge. And it's Matt, Foggy, and Coolio out on the steps of the courthouse.
Singing
and
Gangster's Paradise.
Correct. Yeah. And Coolio won't stop hugging Foggy. He's just like, "Thank you so much. You're a brother to me. Thank you so much. Oh man, I can't believe it. Thank you." And he keeps hugging him. And Matt just like sidesteps and slowly walks away. And then he walks down the street to the steps of the church that he always goes to as mass is letting out, and the priest is like, "Maybe next week, Matt," because they're like, "Oh, you just missed it," kind of thing. Because I think there's a line earlier where he's like, "I'll see you in church," or whatever.
Okay, yeah. That sounds like a pretty good ending. That sounds nice.
And then
not
it
bad.
kind of fades
much
out.
better.
I mean, I like that the director's cut seems to have at least like had this legal subplot where you have more of Matt Murdock as the lawyer, which is nice. But the post-credit scene in the theatrical cut, you go to a hospital bed and Bullseye is there and he wakes up in the hospital.
That's also in this cut too.
Oh, is it? Okay,
It's
so
not
he wakes up.
post-credits.
This is a post-credit scene, but he wakes up in the hospital and you hear like a fly buzzing, and he's like in the room alone, and he's like kind of strapped down to the bed, but he's able to grab a syringe needle and kill the fly, and then that's the end of the movie.
Yeah,
Jesus.
in like full body traction.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through some of these fun facts we missed, especially the casting who could have been in this movie.
I know for a fact, I mean, just based on like rumors around the time and stuff, I believe Guy Pearce was like the closest to getting it before Ben Affleck, right?
Yes. Guy Pearce said that he was offered the role, but turned it down, stating that comic strip stuff isn't really my cup of tea. Really?
That's the most Guy Pearce quote I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And then he was in Iron Man 3, like a few years later.
Right.
Yeah.
Money speaks,
Money talks.
people. Yeah. Vin Diesel was also considered to portray Daredevil, but he opted to take another role. I couldn't figure out.
Triple X.
Okay, because
so actually, I'm on the Wikipedia page right now, and it says, and the link to saying he took a role in another film, and
it's Fast and the Furious. It's not right though, because it came out earlier.
That's not right. Okay.
No, it says Fast and the Furious on Wikipedia, and it links to Fast and Furious, but that came out before this movie. And then the other site that I found said Pitch Black, which also came out before this movie. So
that would be too early. I think Triple X might be the closest. Yeah, I think you're right,
Triple
Jackie.
X came out August
2002.
2002.
Mike's a big Triple X guy.
Yeah.
I do like Triple X. Really, I'm a big Triple X 3 guy. If you guys haven't seen The Return of Xander Cage, it rules.
I have not seen any of these movies, but at least we know who to call when we do Triple X.
Yeah, well, honestly, the first two Triple X's, like, they're not great, but the first one's kind of fun. But number 3 is just fucking bananas. It's so good. He has a motorcycle on the ocean. He's like driving a motorcycle on the water. He's skiing in the forest. It's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh my god.
Interestingly enough, Chris Columbus was set to direct the film adaptation in 1997.
What? Huh.
That would have been so different.
I know they were real different.
They were going back and forth between the studios and all this other stuff of like how they were going to get it done. And I think, like I said, they got a huge boost in the budget after Spider-Man did well. So originally it was supposed to be a smaller, grittier movie, and then they got a huge, they threw money at the problem. They got the money back, but still.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Columbus would not have made like a gritty Daredevil movie.
That
would have been
such a weird.
He was a few years away from making the first 2 Harry Potters. He was the Home Alone guy. Like unless he like went back to his roots and was like, I'm going to make something like Gremlins, but with Daredevil, which would be rad. That would be great.
So considered to play Elektra, Kate Winslet, Penelope Cruz, Salma Hayek, Natalie Portman, Lucy Liu, Jessica Alba, Katie Holmes, Jolene,
just basically every
Blalock.
working actress.
Yes,
exactly.
In the early 2000s.
Mia Maestro, who ended up playing Jennifer Garner's sister on Alias, which I think is funny.
Cool.
And who was the last one, Jackie?
Rona Mitra.
Don't know who that is. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And Seth Rogen auditioned for the role of Foggy, but he was too young.
Fascinating.
And it said, I read an interesting tidbit where it said that while Jon Favreau was portraying Foggy, this is where he really started getting invested in Iron Man and started really shoring up the concept for that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's only like a couple of years later, like it's 2006, I think Marvel Studios kind of like launches into its own thing and starts making Iron Man and Incredible Hulk and stuff. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Joe Quesada considered it serendipity in action that Affleck is the lead role, as when he and Kevin Smith did the Guardian Devil series, they had modeled it on Affleck.
Oh, Yeah, that also makes sense. Kevin Smith, Ben Affleck. Also, Joe Quesada's referenced in this movie. The guy that Daredevil like chases around, like the guy who was on trial and was lying, and he goes to I think the guy he kills on the train is named Quesada. Like that's his character's name.
Look at that.
That's neat.
This is the 10th highest grossing Ben Affleck movie.
It's pretty low for a superhero movie to be your 10th highest grossing. That's pretty good.
The first two are the Justice League and the whatever Batman movie.
Batman vs Superman, probably. Yeah, which makes sense, but those movies aren't good either.
Like in Snyderverse.
Yeah. Also, his bestie, Matt Damon, was offered the role. He claimed that he and Ben loved the comic book, but didn't quite believe in the script or the director at the time.
Fair.
Yeah.
Real diss on Mark Steven Johnson right there, Matt.
Yeah.
And Edward Norton, Matthew Davis, and Colin Farrell, who obviously plays Bullseye, they were also considered until Affleck signed on.
And like we had mentioned earlier, Affleck made sure he was a huge Daredevil fan, and he made sure he had read every single issue and commented that it was about taking what he knew as a fan and faithfully getting it on the screen. So it's probably why he disliked and disowned the film, and it said to have inspired him to take the role of Batman over.
He got another shot at a superhero. And I was never a big fan of his Batman either, honestly, but I think he could have grown into the role, which I guess he's going to be in The Flash. So there's that. I mean,
there's that.
There is that. A movie that I'm not particularly excited for, but it does have Michael Keaton coming back. So it's like, I don't know.
And Ben Affleck was virtually blind because he had to wear heavy duty contact lenses, which allegedly blocked most of his vision.
That was one thing I noticed, like as the comparison between Affleck and Charlie Cox, that Charlie Cox's like blind acting, quote unquote, is so much better than Ben Affleck is always just like looking up. Like, like come on. But I guess that makes he has the
contacts and
but I feel like I remember reading something about Charlie Cox going to audition for like one of the Star Wars movies or something.
Okay.
After coming off doing Daredevil for like 2 seasons and accidentally did the audition like without making any eye contact because he had just been acting for so long like that. And I was like, well, that's gone.
But like
J.J. Abrams thinks I can't look at the camera.
Yeah. Apparently Cuba Gooding Jr. wanted the lead role, but was not approached. I honestly haven't read anything funnier this week.
That would be very interesting, though.
Didn't you do Boat Trip around this time?
Girl, probably.
That sounds about right.
And I'm sad we're going to have to do Boat Trip on the show at some point. And they were fooling absolutely no one, pretending that this movie took place in New York. I knew it was LA.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. It is also a funny Daredevil thing where he's like, I'm the protector of Hell's Kitchen. And it's like he's acting as if it's this huge, big part of New York City. And it's like 3 blocks.
Hell's Kitchen is so small. Like, I always thought it was funny, like when I watched the TV show, because like they each have a section of New York. Like, Spider-Man, he reps Queens, but I don't know.
He lives in Queens, but he's mostly in Manhattan. Like he's swinging around all over the place.
Yeah, but he's like Flushing, I think. I'm not sure. Yes. But Matt is in Hell's Kitchen, and then Luke Cage is in Harlem. Like y'all are repping blocks, okay?
Yeah.
Literal blocks. Like, come on. They're not even getting boroughs, okay? Like, it'd be one thing if they were getting boroughs, but they're legitimately getting blocks. I never understood that. But you know what? Maybe they're like, crime is so crazy in New York. I got to take a street.
Just a little square area.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
This is my territory. I will deal with this.
Yeah. Michael Clarke Duncan also provided the voice for Kingpin in Spider-Man, the new animated series. So,
cool.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace to Michael Clarke Duncan. Really loved him as an actor, and to Coolio.
Yes, but to both of them. Michael Clarke Duncan is great in a lot of things, but I really love him in Talladega Nights. I think that's my favorite of his.
Wow.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. It's perfect. It's so good.
Why don't you guys tell everybody where they can find you before we jump into our ratings?
Yes. So, like we were saying on the preview episode, you can find me at M Smith Film Blog on Twitter, Mike Smith Film on Letterboxd, Radio Mike Sandwich on Instagram. You can find our podcasts on Twitter as well, at Mike and Mike Pod and at Complete Works Pod. That's WRKS, no O in the word works. And that's, of course, our Michelle Yeoh podcast. And they're available wherever podcasts are, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places. Mike D.
That's right. You can find me at MD Film Blog on Twitter and Letterboxd. If you want Mike and Mike merch, we got Mike and Mike merch at mikeandmikepods.redbubble.com. And we got a Ko-fi too, kofi.com/mikeandmikepods.
Definitely check them out. Their Complete Works show has every season it's a different actor. They've already done Nicolas Cage. They've done Jeff Goldblum. And now they're doing Michelle Yeoh. So definitely check that out. And also on their Mike and Mike podcast, it's really fun because sometimes they make each other watch movies that the other has not seen or does not want to see. Definitely check out the series when Mike D has to watch some of the Marvel. It was the Zack Snyder movies, I think, that you didn't want to see.
I mean, we have had to watch a lot of Zack Snyder movies in the past because Mike D's not a fan, and that's always fun. But I'm making him watch the old school Batman in March, the Adam West Batman 1966, which I think is a great movie. It's really fun. So yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
I love the optimism.
And as always, you guys can send us messages. Let us know what you think at No More Late Fees on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. We're really close to getting to 200 subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, please do. And now, Mike S., I'm going to start with you. What is your today rating of Daredevil?
So the today rating, I think before for my Y2K rating, I said a 5-day rental leaning into like a buy it thing when I was 10 years old. I think now watching it, and again, have not seen the director's cut. The director's cut's probably better. I would downgrade it to a 2-day rental, I think. I wouldn't say outright skip it. I think there's enough fun stuff. Yeah, like watch it just for Colin Farrell, Michael Clarke Duncan alone. Like they're great. But I think there's enough fun stuff here and there's enough like kind of camp value. And it's like very much, this is 2003 era. Like filmmaking. But yeah, I would go 2-day rental on this one.
Mike,
I'm gonna go 5-day rental because it turns out the director's cut is on Hulu. I found it through ways that you find stuff, but it turns out it's on Hulu. So if you want to watch the director's cut that way, go ahead. I suggest you do.
I didn't know it was streaming anywhere, and if I did, I might have watched it. The theatrical cut's on HBO Max, so there's that.
There you go.
Jackie?
I'm sticking with my 2-day rental, although I am definitely going to look into the director's cut for Coolio alone.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm sticking with 2-day myself. I pray I don't have to watch this again. And I'm not sniffing around for the director's cut. But I am
Take along with the director's cut.
I'm very down for Elektra. Got that bitch on DVD. Spoiler alert.
This did make me want to go back and rewatch Alias because I haven't watched that, obviously.
Oh, I just did a rewatch the other day.
It's good. Worth it.
The entire show in one day.
Garner. I love her. No, it wasn't one day. It was. I took it piece by piece. I cry a lot because I love I love the relationship between Sydney and her father, Jack. It's so freaking good. It's the best part of the show. When I was younger, I used to think it was because of her and Michael Vertan's chemistry, who plays Vaughn. But after rewatching it, I was like, fuck that. It's Jack for life. Her daddy. Anywho.
Well, if you as well are a Jennifer Garner stan and want to tell us all about it, or if you just want to sing us your best rendition of Gangster's Paradise, hit us up at our quick drop 909-601-NMLF 909-601-6653. Twat us at the Twitters or leave a message on our Anchor FM account and you can be featured on a future episode.
And join us next week as we celebrate Jackie. For her birthday.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday, Jackie.
One of her favorite movies, The Wedding Date.
So
okay. I'm on. Is that Amy Adams? Is that?
Yes.
Okay,
is in
all
it.
right. I have not seen it, but I was like, that sounds
You
like it could be an
should
Amy
watch
Adams movie
it.
in the 2000s.
Yeah, this can be no more late fees. It makes Mike and Mike watch things they have never watched before.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys should come on the podcast and make us watch
Yes.
something. That would be a lot of fun.
Ooh, we
Danielle
have-
has done that. Danielle has done that for My Girl too.
That was a good movie. You had
It
a good
was.
time. You
We
had
did have a good time. Yeah.
We
And
almost got to
I-
do it on Complete Works if Jamie Lee Curtis had won.
If
That's
Jamie Lee Curtis
true.
had won, we would have done My Girl 2 again.
Well, thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure as always bringing
Yes.
that knowledge, and at least someone watched the director's cut. For
Yeah.
us.
I did it for all of you at home.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I sat with Daredevil for an extra 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It sounded like you had a better time than we did. so-
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And as always, be kind and rewind.